All right.
All right, folks, crypto market update. Happy Thursday, the whatever day it is, the 21st.
221.
It's February. Oh, yeah, we're still in
Moving through the
February.
year.
What year is it again? 2019. Okay, cool. So,
Yep. Lots to talk about right now. There's a lot of exciting stuff kind of behind the scenes and development being done, which is, there's not as much hype as the past few years because prices are obviously down. We're in the late stage of the fifth phase of the market cycle. But in the news and just overall development, like there's a lot of really awesome stuff happening right now.
absolutely. Like I said many times before, my absolute favorite time in the market is when the prices are really, really low and the fundamentals are super bullish and just keep getting hammered with all this industry growth and bullish fundamentals. Similar to 2015, like I actually really enjoyed 2015 as crappy as it was for like slow trading and so on and so forth. Just, it's a good time to just put one's head down and just kind of focus on building something up.
Yep.
So looking at the price action, so we had a lot of backflips and people hooping and hawing and get really excited over this range bound market. So suddenly, what I love about market sentiment is like, one green candle and it's like, take that bears, it's all over, blah 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 blah, and then like a red candle and the people who are screaming bull are going to be bear again. And it's just I guess market psychology, human nature, just reacting to price action. I personally take more of a indifference approach right now. Like I'm just like I know what my goals are. I know what my bigger targets are. I don't get terribly excited about this little sideways range right here. And I'm just, for myself, I'm just patiently waiting. Now, that said, for anyone who is trading smaller time frames, there's still some interesting percentage moves. So the question is right now is it seems like we do have kind of established a range here, multiple points of contact here at resistance. Obviously,
and Rock, feel free to open that chart that I sent you to.
Yeah, let me just let's just look at that here. One sec. All right, so this is a small,
yeah, that's the daily.
Kind of like, so obviously, like if someone's going to long, then longing into resistance, especially in a bear trend, doesn't necessarily produce good fruit.
Yeah. I'll tell you. So, where are we going back to like November being around this 3,500 to 4K level?
Yeah.
For me, like I'm not trying to anticipate when a reversal is going to happen. Like I'm just looking for confirmation. So like, obviously, you can draw a few different types of trend lines, but to me, 4K is really like the line in the sand. Shorts right now are not high. So that's the interesting thing. So I was thinking like, hey, are we going to get a short squeeze? But I'll post this chart in the room. We're at like a multi-month low on the shorts. So I don't really see like a high potential for a short squeeze. But also longs are at their lowest level since November or December. So that's pretty interesting too. So I don't know. I can't really get a read from those two charts.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess shorts and longs are for margin anyways seem fairly neutral then. This is mid-range, even slightly lower than mid-range, and longs are also do kind of look a bit on the low side as well. It's almost like they've all been squeezed out. It's almost like seems like margin traders in general are just kind of dropping off.
Yeah, and this is kind of typical when we're mid-range, right? So you have established resistance at, call it 4,200. You have support down in the 32 to 3,400 range. And so you can get these spikes where you get like one day where it's like, oh, there's volume coming back. And then like the next 3 days, it falls off. Like we saw like on the 18th, we had that like volume spike and it was like, okay, are we going to get something? And then you can see over the past 72 hours, it's kind of just been falling again. And that's typical when you're mid-range, right? You'll get like panic spikes down, pop stop runs up. And so for me, I'm just looking at, okay, where's the area where if we get a snap above or below, that would actually mean something significant. And to me, that's right around 4,400, that resistance.
Yeah, someone's asking where's the volume coming from? So volume would be coming from the spot market. So these two are just showing shorts and longs as far as like margin borrowing. But just regular buying and selling creates volume as well. And these longs and shorts don't actually show activity on the regular spot market. And most crypto exchanges are just kind of spot trading unless you're going into Bitfinex or a lot of these longs and shorts are Bitfinex. Yeah, these are Bitfinex specifically. And they don't say anything to futures necessarily either. There's obviously a lot more volume in futures like BitMEX because it's synthetic. It's not real supply they're messing with. So if I were to look at the markets here, I bet you BitMEX is still like BitMEX produces more volume than CME Bitcoin or CBOE Bitcoin. So
yeah, it's kind of hard to know for sure what that is. And yeah, CME had I believe that was kind of interesting. I think they had some big block orders on the 19th, 18th or 19th. It was actually based on the chart I have, the biggest volume day ever. Here, I'll post this chart.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know for certain if that's accurate. I want to check maybe a couple of different platforms. Let me look at TradeStation. Kind of see what that looks like too.
There's a lot of new, obscure Chinese exchanges I've noticed popping up left, right, and center that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the largest volume day on. So how much volume was that? Would you say that's 16? 16K. Is that
if that's accurate? 15,000. Yeah, 15,000 contracts.
And
so it's not
contract
really that
is,
much.
A contract is a block of 5 Bitcoins, or how much was in CME?
Yeah, here I'll post the info.
Bitcoin. So I haven't traded there. So
yeah, here's the contract specs. So a contract unit for the CME is 5 Bitcoin.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so we're looking at 15,
and then each tick is $5. So
75,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's pretty significant. It's just, again, what I like to do is I want to line up volume spikes with breaks of key areas, right? Because you can get volume spikes mid-range and they can kind of cancel out and price doesn't necessarily have to move, right? So that's why I try to avoid like noise when we're mid-range. But if say we got like another volume spike like that and a break of 4,400 on the regular spot charts, like that to me would be significant and I would likely buy that. So like my plans, possibilities, probabilities right now is I've been moving more fiat to a couple of exchanges just to have ready. I'm not going super aggressive right now, but if we did have a volume spike above 4,400, I would definitely try to get a good risk reward entry on that break.
So if I'm not mistaken, that would be turnover on that volume spike of 75,000 Bitcoins, which would be equivalent to 291 million on that green spike. If I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to jump into another trading platform in a little bit and just verify that. Sometimes these data feeds on TradingView aren't correct.
So that would actually, if that were the case, that would actually mean more volume traded, probably than many other.
Yeah,
coins.
and again, like
Trades.
futures that are settled in cash can be deceiving because they're, again, they're settled in cash.
They're fake. They're
Yeah.
fugazi.
Yeah. I mean, it's not actual BTC. So I see a couple questions talking about that area. Rock, can you pull up my chart? The one showing that zone?
This one?
Yeah. So like if you look at kind of that, what I marked up as the danger zone, I think like 4K to 4,200 is the danger zone. If we got a break above that, really like and again, I like to use round numbers. Obviously, guys, go into your charts and see where the actual resistance break is. But yeah, 4,400, a volume spike above that would indicate a pretty strong reversal. However, because we're staring at that red wall of death from 20K down to where we are now, what that means is there's a lot of bag holders. So in a bear market, I am very cautious of resistance breaks, right? So again, the contrast there, at least for me, is bull market when you're either testing or breaking to new all-time highs, aggressive with size, liberal with profit targets, right? When you are on the backside of a big red wall, prior support and resistance areas matter a whole lot because of bag holders, right? When people see those spikes and you get back in, say you got back into like 6K resistance, there's going to be a lot of people selling into that. So unless there's some kind of black swan event or some kind of fundamental news thing that changes our hypothesis about what's going to happen, you just have to be really careful. It's very rare that you get a V bottom bounce that just like in a bear market that just like stabs through all the strong resistance levels, right? So with that, and this has been my play ever since December, is like if we do get a resistance break, I'm going to have really disciplined risk to reward, predefine that. I'm going to be trading smaller size and I'm going to be taking quicker profit, right? So that's the trade, right? So I would likely close, probably half to 3/4 of the position on the first test of resistance, then adjust stops and then give it room to play out, right? Whereas like in a bull market, it's like, okay, you get a break, new all-time high, breakout, heavier size, longer targets, and you really don't know where the high is going to be because you're testing uncharted waters, right? There's a big difference in mindset between resistance breaks and bull and bear markets. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, that's my plan. Rock, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking it wouldn't surprise me in the least if we sold that resistance and just kind of chopped around and do some more sideways, kind of jerk around people's emotions some more. And the more it does that I think the more bullish that would be. It just kind of like established a range, because also something to take into account if we do continue with the prolonged range is that we didn't really, if you cut out this, because this didn't happen on the other exchanges, aside from like this little flat line down here, we had lower highs. We didn't have any form of equal highs or retests of resistance for the most part, right? So if we were to create more sideways in a longer period of time in a range, then in my opinion, then that would definitely start to look like confirmed accumulation. I would look for a volume uptick on the breakout. Like the first sign of breaking out of an accumulation range would be the instant it breaks out, you'd see probably volume that either is the same level of volume as when the initial dump happened or even larger. So like in 2015, the accumulation range was framed by two volume bars right here and right here, right? big record-breaking volume, also a little volume spike right there. But then for the most part, there's long periods where it just kind of died. So you can see this volume, these two volume bars really framed the range here. It started the capitulation, and then it led to the breakout. So an uptick in volume on CME is certainly interesting to pay attention to. It shows that there's a possibility that perhaps some more mainstream financial institutions would be taking larger size long positions, unless of course someone capitulated. Obviously there's a seller for every buyer. So, but someone, definitely shows that there's some buying interest there, even though the price didn't really move up that much. Where is it? Yeah, right there. So I would, and obviously this market is kind of like maturing too. It's getting more and more liquidity as it develops. Brand new market on futures, so that'll take some time. But I like seeing things like that, a little uptick there in volume.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the probability of that is higher than like an immediate breakout. Like I wouldn't mind to see Bitcoin go range bound for a while. That would just be more confirmation, right? Because the most typical reversals in the fifth phase are either a capitulation washout, right? Where like say we dip into the twos, or we have, like you said, like a volume spike like we're seeing on CME, and then that low tends to hold and then we accumulate. That would give me more confidence to more slowly accumulate and then be prepared for the eventual break in the future. But
absolutely. And the interesting thing with Bitcoin too versus other traditional markets is that there is a certain level of predictability in Bitcoin. What I mean by that is, in the other markets, you can, obviously there's some things that are non-predictable, like black swans and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that is predictable and is known about Bitcoin is its rate of inflation, its block halvings, and generally, historically, it doesn't necessarily mean this has to always be the case, but historically, pretty much anyone who's in crypto knows that the cycles are very much timed around block halving rewards. And usually once a block halving happens, about a year later, you start to possibly retest all-time highs and maybe even break out like what we saw in 2016, so on and so forth. Now, to me, the biggest fundamentals in relation to that is just very, very basic supply and demand dynamics, right? So limited in supply, large population. There are some things fundamentally that absorb that supply and demand dynamics. For example, the creation of a billion different types of altcoins helps absorb some of that money, right? That doesn't just only impact the Bitcoin markets. A new investor doesn't even have to buy Bitcoin anymore to get into altcoins. So that absorbs it. It's one of the reasons why maximalists hate altcoins. And another thing that absorbs and changes that supply and demand dynamic are futures that are cash settled and synthetic in that sense, because you could use excessive amounts of leverage on and basically speculate on the price without even touching a single Bitcoin, right? So that's one thing. And so there'll be a counterbalance to that with once BACT is launched, and if we get some proper ETFs and stuff like that, or American ETFs, that'll help affect the supply and demand dynamics. And what's interesting with that is user metrics, right? There's Chris and I were talking about this the other day. There's also kind of like for anyone who has any information out there, like YouTube videos on Bitcoin or websites or anything like that, you can get ambient user metrics. You can start to see an uptick in user adoption when new users come in. So Chris and I were talking about that yesterday because he has some basic Bitcoin videos that he created. I think it was probably like 2014 he created them. And they're just kind of like evergreen and they're out there on YouTube. But he'll look at stats and notice when there's an uptick in people watching the videos and the traffic those videos get. And that frontline videos like that are on the front line of user adoption because the only people watching basic videos on how to trade or how to buy Bitcoin or something like that are new people looking it up on YouTube or coming into the space. So obviously seasoned vets aren't going to look up a video how to buy Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
So that's another interesting metric that one could look at based on supply and demand and user growth, really.
Yeah. I mean, I did like just a very simple, like 5 video series. It was actually 2013. And it's interesting. Yeah. Like it's almost a leading indicator, like before price pops, like usually there's an uptick in views. And I noticed a little one recently, but like nothing really significant. But yeah, I'll definitely let you guys know, and maybe even post some like charts of the YouTube analytics, which are actually really good. And you can drill down and you can see which countries are increasing or where the hot spots are. And yeah, so that's definitely one just kind of extra fundamental piece that we have at our disposal.
Absolutely. And then you've got stuff like Google Trends, which everyone has access to, but how to buy Bitcoin, something like that. And you can kind of see that interest is somewhat flat, or you can see where you have a higher uptake. But if you were to look at, let's say, past 5 years, come on. Oh, not United States, not just United States, well, worldwide. Let's just look at worldwide here. Let's see. And look, here's something look how it goes parabolic right during the parabolic spike.
Yep.
Right. So these are like real users coming in. I want to buy Bitcoin. I'm so excited. And then, but you look at where it's flat, it's usually accumulation. And then you kind of see it started to increase during the 2017 bull run is when we really saw a flood of new users. Then it went nuts.
Yep.
And so what's interesting now, though, is when you look at it, is we're seeing an uptick in Africa, right? So
yeah, Rock, maybe go back to like the, I don't know, 6 or 12 months. Let's see what countries are the hottest. maybe 90 days. Let's do 90 days. I'm curious to see what countries.
All right. So in 12 months, it's been African countries.
Yeah. Nigeria, Ghana.
And in 90 days, it's been African countries and Malta and Afghanistan. Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and then local Bitcoins and stuff like that. And, I was reading an article today on Venezuela mining. Apparently 1 in 5 middle to upper class Venezuelans, there aren't many of them, are mining crypto to survive. So it's actually, it's huge, right? It's fairly big. And so in cases like this, you're getting into like the real nitty gritty and utility of Bitcoin. You're not getting into, people have money just speculating. You're getting into people who are using it to survive, are using it because they don't have access to banks, or they have hyperinflation, or just that their internet and their tech sectors are growing. Obviously, in India, we saw a boom in their tech sector. With that, anyone who's into technology or programming or whatever has likely heard about Bitcoin. Most of the time when I talk to someone who's a programmer, even if I've never met them before, and I tell them about Bitcoin, they tend to have like some understanding or exposure to it, whether they even experimented with mining or something like that. Just obviously because it comes a little bit natural to them to get involved. So that's interesting. Someone just posted Bitcoin transactions per second approaching an all-time high. So let's just look at that here for a second, and then I'm going to go back into the charts here. So the transaction rate on the blockchain, interesting. So we're seeing nice growth again with this. A big drop after the crash, and now it seems like it's on the uptick. And probably a lot of this has to do with Lightning Network and stuff like that. Or this is all on chain, so I don't know if Lightning would affect that.
Yeah, I wonder if that chart's taking that into consideration. I would guess not.
Yeah, I think there'll be I think there's like a final settlement on Lightning when the tab's settled. But so this is good. This is just showing some general growth. Now, as far as charts, I just want to jump back into the technicals, and then we'll dive into news and more in the fundamentals. Obviously, a lot of people were doing backflips over Ethereum or whatnot. It's still very much in a range similar to Bitcoin. You can kind of see there's major resistance points down here. Something that I posted for anyone and look, you can see a nice increase in volume there at the lower end of the range, more so than bigger uptick than what we've seen in Bitcoin. One thing to consider, and I like how this has dropped below this area, right? So it could very well be an accumulation range, and if it does drop lower,
that's definitely 100% retracement of the bubble. That's what I would call it. But that doesn't mean that has to be the low either. I mean, it could retest and flop around down there.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not trading the smaller time frames, or who's not going for like massive grand slam and seeing if this will retest all-time highs and so on and so forth, if this were to break out of the range, I posted this chart in the crypto markets section. In my opinion, a really good initial take profit zone would be right around here. So like, let's say there was a clean breakout. From here to here would be over a double, right? Because you can see there's resistance, support, and there's confluence between a fib retracement, right? So I would see that 400 area. I could take a long time before it gets there. As a good area to take some profit. I wouldn't be surprised if other people would eye that same zone, very obvious zone. And I would be, I personally think it's a lower probability. Obviously, this is just my own subjective analysis, but I think it's a lower probability that Ethereum will never hit that price ever again, right? It's kind of like when Bitcoin was in the 5 digits and everybody was really euphoric. I asked myself the question, just as a reminder, it's like a sobriety check. Make sure you're not drunk on crypto Kool-Aid. It's like, what are the probabilities and possibilities that Bitcoin will stay 5 digits and never drop below 10K ever again? When you frame it that way, it kind of puts things in perspective, because it's not a matter of will it do it next week or tomorrow or next month or whatever. It doesn't matter the time span. What matters is, will it ever? What are the probabilities that's going to stay 5 digits? And I was like, well, I think the probabilities are very, very low that it's never going to drop below 10K again. So therefore, anything above 10K, it's good to if you get any Bitcoin, anything like that, good to sell into that. And then, at the lows, for me, it's like, if I were to reframe this question, I would look at the overall market cap and I would ask myself, what are the odds that the market cap of the entire cryptocurrency market will never surpass 133 billion again? What are the odds that it's going to stay stuck at 133 billion or drop lower or just completely die, right? So now I'm asking the same question, but at the opposite end of the spectrum. Now, asking a question like that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a breakout tomorrow or next week or next month or whatever. It could mean that, hey, we're going to go sideways for a long time. It could mean that, hey, maybe we're going to drop lower first, right? But from a longer term investment standpoint, similar to in 2015, I asked myself in 2015, what are the odds that Bitcoin will never retest the all-time highs or break out of the all-time highs ever again, right? So it's like, well, it took a while to do, but it happened. And I thought that probability is very low that we'd never retest and or break out into a new cycle. I thought the probability at the time was very low. So that gave me confidence to invest and put a lot of energy into it at the time. But you know, it's a patience game. It's a patience game. So that's kind of the way
that's the biggest key, right? Everybody wants the markets to move on their own schedule, but that actually, so Martin asked a question kind of related to that. Can you talk a little bit about the psychology behind accumulation? Since everybody knows that this phase is next, how do you define the thought process behind it? Well, I would argue that not everybody knows that this phase is next. I mean, there's a lot more people that are aware of Bitcoin. And I mean, I think a couple 100,000 people have watched my video about market cycles. But that's what happens with a new cycle is there's new money that comes in, right? Like Rock was showing the Google searches, like people that are actually Googling how to buy Bitcoin. Those are probably, like, I would say 99% of those people are not people that have been through a prior market cycle. Like some of them may have been and they forgot how to buy Bitcoin, but like for the most part, this is such a good indicator because it's new money. Yeah, Dave said it's fresh meat. So what accumulation is when the hype goes away and everybody that is a potential candidate to panic sell is out. That's when the selling stops, right? And it sounds blatantly obvious, but like think about that. Markets quit going down once the majority of people that are prone to panic selling have already done that, right? So that's why like 2015, second week in January, we had that capitulation. After that, what was that, 30 to 50% dump over 3 days that got us into the 160s? After that happened, the reason why the market stopped going down is because everybody that bought on the way up had pretty much panic sold. And the only people that were left were hodlers and people that believed in the tech. And like Rocky said, ask that question, what are the probabilities that it's going to go higher eventually? And then you have to be patient, and your patience and your risk taking is rewarded when the next cycle of money comes in, right? So that's how cycles work, and that's really what accumulation is all about. What it looks like is everybody that wanted to panicked, right? They're gone. So there's really, and I'm oversimplifying here, but really there's no more sellers, right? And then price is flat. Market sentiment is really bad. You get more Bitcoin obituaries every week. But then as time goes on and price reveals to you, it's kind of like pulling back a curtain, like, oh, this is actually turning into an accumulation period, right? Sometimes it looks like accumulation, but really it's setting up for another breakdown. But in that case, when you have a year like that that's framed by 2 volume spikes and then you go into a range, that's what accumulation really is, right? And then what is required next is another round of fresh meat or new money, right? So right now, it's very interesting because, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and we've talked about it in prior classes. We've had the big like public boom, right? Like we've had the bubble that pretty much caught mainstream in the West. What I mean by that is like it was on CNBC. Like I had friends and family that were sending me video recordings of local news channels talking about how Betty Sue, her dad, paid for her wedding because he bought Bitcoin, right? Like we had that like kind of immature hype cycle. What happens next? And again, there's no guarantee that this has to happen, but this is what we're betting on, literally and figuratively, is that the next round is going to be smart money and is going to come in a more sustainable way. So I don't think we're going to have another ICO boom, right? Where all these like magic tokens get inflated to crazy prices. But for you guys that have been paying attention to the ICO space, I mean, you've by now heard these numbers of There's X trillions of dollars of assets that could be tokenized. And now you're seeing JP Morgan coin, like when guys like that, how about that? Let's pause on that for a second. When JP Morgan capitulates and gets into the game, this shit is not going anywhere.
What's funny is, so like one news outlet, we were laughing about it last week. It's like, oh, this is the death of Bitcoin because of JP Morgan coin. And then Bloomberg, get this, Bloomberg just posted something saying, oh, delayed rally. Bitcoin rallies on the news of JP Morgan coin.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about how that happens. Think of it. You have some journalist who gets paid by the number of words that they post or something, and they have to come up with a story. So they're like, okay, everybody's talking about this JP Morgan thing. Bitcoin's price is up a little bit. Let's just put those together and make an article about it, right? They don't know. It's what CNBC does all the time. It's like there's a formula for it. It's called what did the markets do? What's the biggest news piece of the day? And then you marry those things together, even if they really have no relation at all.
And also, who's our sponsors?
Exactly.
It has to show JP Morgan.
Yeah. So anyway, so going back to like JP Morgan, like again, like real developments coming in. We're starting to see these security tokens get tokenized and issued, right? So I think there's another cycle coming. I just don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or in 6 months or longer. But the key is just to be prepared, because the worst thing you can do is like put all this time and energy in, and then you're like, I'm bored. I'm going to go pay attention to something else. And then you miss it, right? A lot of people did that in 15. I mean, we talked to people that, either made or lost some money in the 14 bubble, and then they got dissuaded in 15 by all the negative press. And then they completely missed out on the biggest bull run in history, right? So that's why patience is key, and just understanding the context of like where we are in the bigger picture. If you're so focused on like the day by day, you're going to miss the forest through the trees. That's why I feel like right now the smart move is to think and talk more about the development and the progress side, and obviously pay attention to price action, but not obsess over every little pop or flop.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I personally, I enjoy this period of rest and repose. 2017 was nuts. That was a crazy year. I actually like the market being quiet for a bit and unassuming. And then when we go back into bull trend, I don't mind if we have like a slow 2016 slow growth type bull trend where you break out of the range and maybe get a 6-month consolidation on an ascending triangle, and then break out of that range and then consolidate for another 6 months or whatever. Like I'm okay with that, right? Because when things go batshit crazy, it's a lot of mental energy and hustle, right? You always got to make the right decisions and so on and so forth. So I think it's good. And I think for anyone who's new, completely new, a slow growth and a slow accumulation is a blessing. Believe me when I say this, right? I joined at the end of 2013, but 2015 is really what made a difference for me. 2014, I was tinkering around, learning the ropes, but 2015 is really when I put my head down and tried to get as many Bitcoin as I could, right?
Yep.
And I was actually very, very happy that period lasted 11 months. Other people were bored and stuff. I was like, please don't break out until I get more Bitcoin. Come on, don't break out. I was like, I didn't want the markets to take off yet, because I had a very strong conviction in where it was going. Didn't necessarily mean I was right. I mean, I was right and looking back, but at the time you don't know that. But the interesting thing, Kyle saying, I remember you talking about that all the time. Yeah, for sure. The interesting thing too about crypto that really differs from a lot of other markets is that Bitcoin and crypto, there's a lot of community participation and self-determination, right? Like Bitcoin is not beholden to a single company, a CEO, earnings report, anything like that. It's not beholden to any of that stuff. So like the participants do have an influence over the industry growth.
Mhm.
because no one needs permission to participate. No one needs permission to like start a business around Bitcoin, to promote it, to market it, to whatever, right? Or crypto in general. And so it's one of those, like, it can be one of those. And so you have like a lot of hardcore Bitcoin believers, like with bull Ever. And those, as much as there's a lot of permabulls, and sometimes they get wrecked, and sometimes they don't take profit when they should or whatever, or a lot of people are long-term bullish. I'm long-term bullish. In some ways, because it's like the self-determined community or cryptocurrency or asset based on internet community participation. It's living on the internet predominantly. Having that, it's almost like you build a business, you set vision, you set goals, and how you want your business to grow, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of that element to it as well. Now, obviously, it's still subject to its market cycles. It's still subject to its black swan events and all that kind of crap. But it's really one of those things where you think about the early pioneers. Like, we wouldn't even have Bitcoin today or be where we're at today if a small handful of dedicated, hardcore crypto heads didn't put their heads down and work and build things and grow the industry, right? So anybody can do that. No one needs permission to be able to do that. On a side note, oh, sorry, you want to say something, Chris?
Yeah. Well, to your point about that, just talking about market cycles, and, I agree with you that I actually enjoy the slower periods. And I know there's probably somebody sitting in here going, "No, man, I just want to make money." And I get that. But like, I try to think of it from like a pretty stoic perspective, like what's in your control and what's outside of your control. Let me just ask, I'm actually kind of curious. Type either a 1 if you've heard of this guy or if you're familiar with Stoicism, or a 2 if you're not familiar. Has anybody heard of Ryan Holiday? He wrote The Daily Stoic and okay, kind of mixed. Mostly not. Okay, so there's a few books called The Obstacle is the Way. Just look Ryan Holiday up on Amazon. He's got some really good books out. He's actually a good friend of mine. He's here in Austin, and he's going to come on and do a class with us here in the near future, just talking about like how to think of things like the Stoics used to, where like what's in your control and what's out of your control. Yeah, here, I'll type it. Yeah, Obstacle is the Way is a good one. He has a few good books. So basically the whole gist of Stoicism is it's a practical philosophy, right? It's an actionable philosophy, and it gets you thinking about like, hey, what's in my control and what's outside of my control. And it's particularly helpful for trading and investing because in the markets, like most of what happens is outside of your control, right? And market cycles are one of them. And if you get frustrated or impatient, you can really suffer because of that. So one thing that I like to think about is like, I'm grateful. Like I make gratitude like a practice, like a daily practice where I think about like, hey, I'm grateful for this slow period because it does a few things. It gives me more time to focus on development, on, preparing for the next market cycle. Like the list can go on and on. I'm just as grateful for the slow times as I am the harvest seasons, right? When things are crazy, it's great. But as a couple of you guys said in chat, like it can be stressful. It can be a lot of work. It can be exhausting. I mean, I can remember several all-nighters in 2017, and it's fun. So I'm grateful for all of those. And then the shoulder seasons, right? The transition periods. And I think if you can think about the benefits of the slow times, that'll help with impatience. But I just wanted to drop that because there's these little like mental tricks that I use to kind of help me stay focused. And the cool thing about the slower markets is, like Pomp and some other people have said, the tourists leave, the bullshitters get out of the game, the scammers, the get rich quickers typically leave, right? And then you get projects like this that come about. I don't know if you guys saw this, Tippin.me. So, there's real development that's happening on the Lightning Network now, tipping on Twitter and stuff like that. So You get all of these cool little projects that come out, and then a year or two from now, you look back at these quote unquote little things that pop up and you're like, wow, those really like changed the game, or it changed the direction of where things were headed. So I'm just excited. Like I feel a lot of energy and I'm seeing a lot of development. Like there's real work being done right now. And so I really don't care if we break out tomorrow or if it takes another few months to get things moving. Like there's actual brain power and development happening, and good things come from that. So that's my little tangent.
Absolutely. In relation to tipping.me, Jack Dorsey, the CEO and founder of Twitter, is really big into Bitcoin and Lightning. And it wouldn't even surprise me. He actually tweeted about this. It wouldn't even surprise me if he found a way to integrate it directly into Twitter. What's interesting about that is just the user adoption metrics. Like the tech, Lightning tech is new. Tipping isn't new. We've had Change Tip and stuff like that. So none of that's new, tipping on social media. But if you have a massive social media site like a Twitter or a Facebook, and then suddenly they integrated a Bitcoin tipping feature that was native to the platform, suddenly you've got it on the radar of billions of people. Like, what's this feature that I'm not using? And then, if people start tipping each other and creating a tipping culture, then suddenly, if celebrities start tapping into that and they're telling their followers, hey, tip or whatever, or vice versa, then next thing you know, it just snowballs. And even if it's just small amounts, it's just, even if you can get $5 worth of Bitcoin in many people's pockets, it's a growth in user adoption. It affects the supply, and it's more user interest in general.
And with the whole controversy around Patreon and, censorship, and Jack's kind of right in the middle of this conversation right now, but, I know Minds is becoming more popular, which it's been around for a while, but, Minds, I forget the creator's name, but he was just on Joe Rogan and
Bill Lotman.
Yeah. And, so this type of stuff is coming out. So decentralized ways to monetize for content creators or reporters, right? Like these things are going to be very, very big in the near future. I'm actually really bullish on those platforms.
Absolutely. So on the charts, looking at Holochain, seems like more consolidation. Right now, it's a bit of a bull pennant, but if Bitcoin doesn't hold up, let's say Bitcoin did a full retrace back down to support, then it wouldn't surprise me for it to do one of these and possibly even come and retest this area or even this area, and it could just have like a prolonged consolidation. In my opinion, though, if this project succeeds in doing what they aim to do, in my opinion, it wouldn't surprise me if it turned into a top 10 by market cap. If they pull off, and it's already climbed a lot. Like when I bought Holo, it wasn't even on page 1 on CoinMarketCap, right? So it's like 30, right? And we know that these market caps are all very low. It's all on the low end for this particular cycle. We know that Bitcoin almost hit $1 trillion, or the total market cap of crypto almost hit $1 trillion. Ethereum's total market cap was at, much higher than it is now, like over 133 billion or something like that versus 15 billion. So almost a 10x multiple. Another question that keeps popping up, I had this question pop up a bunch of times, what to do with SALT or coins that get delisted. And I just wanted to show you my hypothesis around coins that are delisted. So some of you might remember this coin called TRST. I made some money off of it. Last year was a darling coin at one point, or token, and it just, was kind of slowly dying, right? It got delisted. So here's the interesting thing. So you look something like this, or actually Cryptopia is done. You look at something like this and you see that, all right, here's a coin that dropped 97%. You could say to yourself, okay, there's no way it could possibly drop any lower than that. Then it got delisted right here, right? And after the delisting, it dropped an additional 92%, right? So imagine buying a dip here, like, oh, it's down 97%, good risk rewards. This turns into, like, in the stock world, this would be an HMNY. At freaking movie pass that just keeps dying. Just when you thought you bought the bottom, you just lost another 80%.
Oh, Trav.
It's okay, Trav. I took a punt at it too, and I lost like 80%.
It's one of those things where it's like, okay, there's a 95% chance this goes to zero, but in the event it turns around, you're going to make like, a 10x or 20x. So, throw a little dust at it, right?
Well, yeah, it's fine. I didn't put a lot into it. I think I only tossed like a few $1,000s. I was like, it's all or nothing. Yeah. Either it recovers and it does something stupid. I'm like, oh, that's a nice payout, or I lose a few $1,000. Yeah. But what was funny is, well, not funny, but I think it was at Grand Cayman. Yeah, Travis was saying he bought some, and it was like one of those few stocks that like literally lost 99% or whatnot. And then after that, I was like, well, it lost 99%. I think I'll take a little punt at this, see if I can try to buy the bottom. And then I just checked today, and I think I'm down like 70% from where I bought. So it's like I got delisted from the stock exchange. Now it's like OTC pink sheet now. And
yeah, it's worth 0.8 of a penny.
Yeah, 0.8 of a penny. And I think I bought it at like 2 cents. I'm like, oh, surely what can go wrong at 2 cents? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, that's what can go on. And so shitcoins, it kind of reminds me of shitcoins, right? Especially like these smaller cap shitcoins. So I would consider HMNY like a smaller cap shitcoin. So here's a delisting, just like it gets delisted from NASDAQ or whatnot. And now it's on OTC. So this gets delisted from major exchanges, and then it drops 92%. Well, you look at Salt, right? So Salt got delisted from Binance, and it started to dump, and a bunch of other coins got delisted, and people were asking, oh, what do you think, right? Well, for starters, when support breaks after delisting, sure, it's possible that it can recover. It is on other exchanges, but one thing that I do is I look at the total volume, and then I figure out how much of that volume is the exchange that got delisted on. So right now the volume is only 983,000, so about $1 million in volume. At the time of the delisting on Binance, it was like 2.5 million in volume, and 1.5 million of that was Binance. So like over 50% of the volume was Binance. So obviously that delisting takes a toll on it. Since the delisting, it's already it's dropped about 28%, and one could end up in a tricky situation where they look at it and they're like, oh, well, maybe it's going to bounce. And I've been in this before. Oh, maybe it's support broke. Maybe it's going to bounce. Maybe once this delisting recovers, you'll have a retest or bounce. Or most often it just does a TRST and it just keeps bleeding out, and then maybe eventually goes flat, right? There's
and the question is like, why did it get delisted, right? Like you have to have a pretty compelling reason to buy if it gets delisted.
Yeah, and I've seen other coin projects die from delistings, like Bullberry, and sometimes it starts the delisting spiral of death where multiple exchanges start delisting it because its volume is so low and they're cleaning up and stuff. So in my opinion, as a general rule, if I take a punt at one of these shit coins and support breaks on a delisting that had the majority volume, I just cut it. That's it. I just cut it. If one is down significantly, one could cut it as a tax harvest, say, you get some you either offset prior profits, or If you realize capital losses, like in Canada, for example, if you have a year with any capital losses, you can carry that backwards up to 3 years, right? I don't know if it's like that in the States, or you could carry it forward indefinitely. So, that's another option. I'm not a lot of people in crypto use, stay as bag holders or whatever. I think if one is bag holding, has to be very selective, because you are technically walking away from money if you bag hold, because you can tax harvest, and because everything is correlated. You could, if you thought crypto was going to go up and you're at a bottom and you tax harvested, you could just take that capital and put it into a better crypto that'll go up in the next cycle or whatnot. And then you get the additional benefit of some capital losses you could carry forward or backward, or offset profits from current years. And that's actually something you could do in future if you make crazy gains like a 2017 and you've got capital losses to carry forward too. So something else, another thing to consider. So I personally, that's my thoughts on it. It's not to say that this isn't going to go up. It's not to say that's not a good project. It's not to, maybe it turns into a home run and it does recover and go up. But I've just seen too many delistings just kind of like fizzle away.
Yeah. And Rock, I'll just tack on to that. Just talking about altcoins in general right now, like there's a couple questions that I want to ask kind of late in a bear cycle when looking at an altcoin, especially if it's like a quote unquote company, right? Where it's like, pretty centralized, or there's people working on a specific product or something. Like, and not all of this information is either public or even possible to find, unless maybe you get in like a Telegram group or you message them and ask for information, or if they just publicly offer it, is how much capital does the project have, right? Like how much did they raise and how much do they have left? What's the state of their development? Like, are they actually working on something, or is their idea dying? And the truth of the matter is, like, the probability of altcoins dying is over 90%. Like, most of them are going to die. So that's why we talk about position sizing, right? And right now, being late cycle, I'm only interested in ones that have raised or currently have, at least 10 to 20 million bucks and have a really competent team. Like, there's just, when you're not in a bull cycle, there's no reason to take risk on lower stuff, and even the high quality ones that have raised a lot of money and have a good team, they can have significant drawdowns. So you have to take that into consideration too, like XTZ, project that has raised a lot of money, has a good team, has a good fundamental kind of story behind it. You have to understand that, like, if you can't take an 80 or a 90% drawdown in newly listed, highly speculative altcoins, like you're doing it wrong, right? Like you have to really, really think about that. And if you're just trying to swing for the fences and get rich on one thing, sure, it might work, but you could also have like a massive drawdown in your overall account value too.
Yeah, absolutely. And another, just to add to that, another interesting question to ask oneself is, does this platform or DApp or service need to be tokenized? Like, how much use is the token?
Yep.
Will it get affected by supply and demand dynamics of increased users using that DApp or whatever? Or is it just like a bunch of people who got together? It's like, how can we raise millions of dollars in free money with zero obligation except for releasing some source code? And in order to do that, we need to tokenize this service somehow. So there's a lot of people who just took, dApps or any ideas and was like, okay, well, we don't need to add a token to this. It functions perfectly well without a token, but without the token, we can't raise those millions of dollars, and Lambos aren't going to buy themselves. Right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, and Martin said something very, very true. I heard about projects that raised 20 plus million last year and are running out of funds right now. Yeah, think about it. Say they raised 20 million bucks in Bitcoin at 15K, and then say, for simplicity, say Bitcoin's at like 5K now. So they, boom, right there, 2/3 off, right? Plus their burn rate which is probably high. I mean, a lot of these crypto founders have never founded a company before, and so they don't even understand what burn rate means or like how to project out into the future. So that's why I'm even, if I sound like I'm bearish on altcoins, it's because I am overall. But it's just like any other capital boom with a new market, right? Most of them fail, but if you find the winners, you make a ton of money. And if you don't have to be perfect, you're going to have several investments that go to zero. Like I'll show you some of my old Poloniex accounts where I still have dust sitting on there of coins that have just died. And the idea is like, you just don't want to have a percentage of your account that if one project dies, you're going to be taken out of the game, right? Survival is first. If you can survive in this game, then you can thrive. But if you start making stupid bets and go too heavy on stuff that's way too early, that's where you can get hurt.
So the big question is, Chris, in relation to your Poloniex account, are you a Bullberry bag holder?
No, not in my accounts.
I wonder if I keep bringing this up because it has the dumbest name I've ever seen in crypto. And that's a prize. Like they should definitely get a tinfoil trophy for that. But hey, holy smokes, it's still alive. It's trading on BTC Alpha. Anyways, I think that I bet you the website's probably down. Oh no.
Mastercoin still trading anywhere?
Wow. Mastercoin, I think, yeah, let's Mastercoin. It's like this is like Mastercoin. Didn't they call it something else? Didn't they rebrand?
Was it something Omni Layer or
Omni? That's it.
Omni, yeah.
There you go. Good memory. It went into the shitcoin graveyard in my brain. So 152. Was that you, Chris? Did you buy that right there? Chris is like 100% of the big spender.
Yeah, I remember their market cap, I think, was over 200 million initially back in 2014.
Yeah, so here's an example of like a top dog project, this and Counterparty and stuff like that were top dog projects that are now micro caps, that are now like dust shitty projects. But there are some projects that were top dog that stayed top dog. Like, I'll never cease to be amazed how Litecoin just keeps trucking. Like at a $3 billion market cap, it's still in the top 5. Ripple, I don't think Ethereum's going to go anywhere. And then things that are a little bit more questionable are these new contenders that pop up, like these forks, these clone forks, and these, like, I wonder how much of that, that's not clone fork, sorry. This is like slowly, Bitcoin SV was, top 5, and it seems like it's slowly climbing down the ranks. I don't know if that's going to stay up there. Ethereum Classic's been climbing down the ranks. I remember that, and that was a top 10. So, it fluctuates and it changes, but that's why I like investing heavier in full networks that offer something unique. Yeah. Obviously, a network does need a coin to stay secure, so that's definite utility. dApps are questionable whether or not it needs a token.
Yep. Exchange tokens. Actually, I like BNB. Because exchanges are the cash cows of crypto. And
let's look at BNB.
Yeah, it actually had a pop. So it's funny. Was it Samani? I think Kyle Samani from Multicoin posted an article a couple of days ago, and then the price popped on that.
Let's see what that USD price is. Oh, popped in USD too. Huh?
Yeah. So that's one that had a boom bust cycle, and then kind of immediately a little bit of a pop there. So I'm watching this one.
And that's a good point. I've watched this thing climb up.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it's very much dependent on the success of the exchange.
Yep.
Almost like owning shares in an exchange, except not as good.
Yep.
Because they don't owe you anything. They're not beholden to the shareholders. They don't have to give you earnings reports. You don't get to vote on anything or whatever. So it's not quite the same. But it's still a different way for people to participate in the success of a growing exchange. And in the next cycle, I wouldn't be surprised to see this Binance coin keep growing. And it's also, they've got money, and it's in their best interest to pump their own coin too.
And they launched the testnet for their DEX.
Oh, nice.
I think that was just a few days ago.
Nice. So that'll probably be
yesterday. Yeah, yesterday Coinbase reported on it. So that's actually interesting. So I was playing around with their platform yesterday. If you hit the exchange tab, you can kind of see the interface, which is funny. Like, this is already so much better than T0.
Yeah. What exchange tab?
I doubt it's on CoinMarketCap. If you look at the chat, I just posted in there.
Okay.
Testnet.binance.org.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's so this is a decentralized exchange, or semi-centralized probably.
Yeah, it's their DEX. So I'll post the article link in here too. So basically, yeah. So if you hit exchange, actually, if you scroll down, you can see it explains how it works. So create a wallet, you can unlock it one of a few ways. So it's basically like, I see some pros and cons with this. Like, this is not for mom and pop investor. You really have to understand security and, understand, how to actually control your stuff, because if you lose access, I don't believe they can recover it.
Yeah, for sure. User friendly. Oh, I'm sure that's really user friendly.
I mean, the interface, if you click
It's
exchange,
slick.
the UI looks pretty good.
This is definitely a slick looking website. It's a slick looking UI. The interface seems pretty standard.
Yeah.
It's all BNB pairings. That's going to create more utility for BNB if this grows.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can grow a DEX large. I think it's Binance for sure. So,
yeah, this is actually something that I'm pretty bullish on. I think the coin's kind of expensive right now, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's mid-range.
I wonder, if it's storable on a hardware wallet, BNB? They have a burn
Can Ledger? Let me see.
It's currently on ERC20 token. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
If it's ERC20, then yeah, you can store it on either or.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, market cap, supply. Yeah, would have liked to. It's a little. I might buy some on another dep if we get a dep. I don't like buying up here at resistance. But if we get a dip, I might add this to my longer term bags just to have some.
Yeah, like Charlton said, they're launching their own chain, so it's called Binance Chain.
Okay.
And yeah, you guys can read it in that link I posted, but basically, I mean, they're going to make a lot of money on listing fees. They're charging $100K now for that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is just kind of the next evolution, right? I mean, we've been talking about decentralized exchanges for several years now. And and they're, it's finally coming, and see how
I think it's necessary for sure, especially after that whole Quadriga thing. Look at ZRX, then we'll go into some news. So I had a request to look at ZRX. ZRX kind of looks a little dumpy. Let's see, there's that. There's USD. It actually did make a new low. If it kind of establishes a range, maybe it'd be an interesting buy. Again, this would be towards decentralized exchanges as well. This is kind of like a protocol for decentralized exchanges on Ethereum. So it does look like it's been doing a sideways range, except it did make a lower low recently, just this month actually. And this lower low doesn't look like it's a sharp wick or anything like that, like a capitulation low, just so it could still be in slow bleed territory. I do have some ZRX as a longer term bag that I bought earlier on when it was on Poloniex, you know, like back, it's still actually, it's probably, yeah, right somewhere around here on Poloniex. So it's been doing a lot since then. Yeah, Poloniex has a lot more data. It's been doing a lot since then. But, you know, I just, when I look at crypto like this and I start to see volatility and then I see this slow bleed phase where it just kind of starts dropping, it just makes me think that maybe it's going to turn into a full retrace coin unless Bitcoin picks up. So it's certainly possible. It could just end up doing a full retrace down to these lower levels unless it can like have a nice little sharp sell-off and a little V-bottom like we've seen here and here.
Could maybe turn into like a Dogecoin type chart where it's just cyclical. I don't really understand what happened at those inflection points, but
for Dogecoin?
No, for Zero. You know how Doge was, you know, just very cyclical. It basically traded in that range.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like maybe this could turn into something like that, but
yeah, with this, it seems like
it's hard to gauge though.
This seems very, all these points here, these bounce points seem very correlated to the entire crypto markets on all the bounce plays we had. Yeah. So like we had this slow bleed where Bitcoin has taken its dominance back. You know, the whole meme up in USD, down in BTC. So this happened for like all of the altcoins until we had that altcoin boom.
Yeah.
And had a recovery. Then it sold off with all the other crap. Then we had that April boom where it was like buying in March and we had that wicked bounce play, you know, sell in April, sell in May type of thing. Some other little bounces, and then like these bounces though are a little bit more exaggerated than what we saw in some other markets. But let's just see how that translates USD wise. USD, we kind of get a bit of a different story since September. We don't have that large yo-yo effect that we're seeing. So right here, see on the BTC charts, it's September, you got this epic, what looks like this epic bounce play, but then you know, what would that turn into? I guess that's not terrible, 150%. And then there was, now it's kind of like, it feels like it's a slow bleed that could do sideways in accumulation. I kind of feel like with this coin or this token, it'll probably just follow correlation, everything else. Like if Bitcoin has a breakout above that 4,300 zone, I bet you ZRX will just do another crazy bounce like everything else.
Yeah. Hey, Rock, you know, I actually, so this is what I would say. This is like just my suggestion is for anybody that's looking at any alts like this that are down or, you know, just really make sure you understand the fundamentals. Like get, and what I mean by that is like, to me, the most important thing right now is runway, like how much cash they have. And if the project would be transparent about that, I know a lot of them are not. And then find out like where they are and what work they've actually done and like who's behind it. Right. Like right now, like even if you did fundamental stuff like months ago, like dive back in, especially if you're looking at something as a potential buy. Like obviously you can do whatever you want, but my thought process right now is like, I don't really, this isn't a high, for me, this is not a market environment that I want to take on a lot of risk. Let me just put it that way. So like, I expect a lot of these projects to fail. Like some of the big names I think will fail. this year. I'm not going to like try to predict which ones will, but I guarantee you this year we're going to have a couple that you're like, oh man, that project failed. And like, just to give yourself an edge, find out as much information as you can about these projects. And it's hard. I mean, I think this is where stocks are actually easier to invest in, is they're required to be public with all their information. So you can dig in and find out how fundamentally healthy or fit a company is, how much cash they have, how much debt they have, what their burn is, what their sales are, what their growth or their declining growth is, right? Where with all these things, it's really, really subjective and really, really hard. But Rock, I posted a link in there just showing the old Doge chart from the Polo days going back to like 2014. All right. It's kind of what I was saying. Like maybe this could turn into this, but it's very rare that we see a coin that kind of behaves that way.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that Doge has going for it is it's got that low Satoshi value.
Yeah.
So psychologically, it just kind of created this pulse or this habit based on these low Satoshi values. And for all the funniness around Doge being a meme coin and a joke and all this stuff, fundamentally, it's still a secure functioning network that's probably still better than 90% of other shit coins. Not that it offers anything as far as new tech or anything like that, but there's a lot of vaporware and a lot of hot air or a lot of insecure networks that are proof of work that could easily be 51% attacked. Dogecoin will never be, I can't say will never, be very, very difficult to 51% attack Dogecoin, because you have to 51% attack Litecoin because they're dual mining now.
Yeah,
right? They're piggybacking off of Litecoin's hashing power, which is how they needed to secure their network, because 99% of their coin supply was created in the first year. So there's no like huge block rewards or anything for mining Doge like there was in the first year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, and ironically, this is again speaking of coins that did really well. If we look at Doge, where are you, Doge, on this list? Seems like it.
You passed it.
Oh, did I?
I think it's around 30 or 25 or something.
Yeah, there it is, 25. For this silly meme coin to still be pushing like 19 mil in volume and be a top 25 coin, that's pretty remarkable, because there's a lot of shitty meme coins that died from 2014. But the reason why this happened is the one thing this had going for it is it actually had the second largest crypto community in 2014 and 2015. So that's what it had going for it. And that just goes to show that value is just perceived value based on community participants. So that's why I think it's still stuck around, because of that boost in user adoption that it saw, because it was such a big deal back in those days.
Man, just kind of a side note, talking about trading volume, like there are some really weird markets popping up now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Doge markets, like, come on, Fat BTC showing 3 million, P2P, B2B, Bit4X, like.
Yeah, there's some weird, like I was saying, there's some weird Chinese exchanges or Asian exchanges popping up.
Yeah.
It's questionable as to how much volume is real or not. Right?
Yeah, I'm not even really, I guess I just realized this. Like I haven't really been paying attention to the gross trading volume number recently. Like I just kind of look at the markets and go, of the exchanges that I think are legit, what does that volume look like? And let me kind of gauge off of that, because it used to be a lot more simple. Now we have so many damn exchanges. It's like, it's kind of getting out of hand.
What, you're not a big fan of Fat BTC, Chris?
Let me look at their website traffic. Oh, okay. Yeah. So they have SimilarWeb is estimating 75,000 hits a month. So they got up to about 150. So call it in between 100 to 150K.
Yeah.
in actual like unique traffic, I think.
Yeah.
And then they're showing $500 million in USD trading volume. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. How long? Yeah. So that's interesting. There's a good, fundamental analysis project for someone to map out site traffic with volume,
Yep.
right? And make comparisons. Look at other sites that cannot wash trade, like maybe a Kraken or a Btrex. They can't wash trade because they're in the US and they'd have a gavel thrown at their face if they did. Um, so, compare it to those traffic stats, and one could possibly even make a model off of that. That would be an interesting analysis.
Yeah. So for comparison, so check this out. Binance, 29 million hits per month.
Yeah.
And they're showing like 750 million. So like maybe a 50% increase in quote unquote trading volume, but literally like the other exchange, 75,000 hits versus 29 million hits.
Yeah. So what was the traffic difference you're saying? So Binance's traffic was
29 million. And that other one, FAT, was 75,000. And they're showing a difference of like 50% in the 24-hour trading volume. So it's obviously fake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically what they're doing is they're wash trading and they're posting fake volume so they show up higher, which could be like a self-fulfilling prophecy where the more volume they show, the more volume they'll get, kind of thing.
Yeah. And what's interesting, something came out with KuCoin where they were kind of threatening projects. They're saying your volume's low. You could pay us a couple $100,000 for a volume boost to not get delisted.
Wow.
Right. So it's almost like a type of extortion or whatever. And so who's gonna give them and they recommended some quote unquote market making services to boost their volume or whatever. So the volume on Binance is 769 million.
Yeah, so the other one was showing what, 400 or 500 million. So
and so what was the other one?
FAT
BTC. The frig is that FAT BTC?
Yep. So round up, say they're showing 500 and the other one's showing 750, but they literally have no website traffic.
Yeah.
It's like true. Paying for Instagram followers.
No, that's like night and day right now,
Yeah.
That's definitely night and day. You can't, like, I'm very Binance.co, or is it .com?
Com. Yeah, I have a plugin in Chrome that you can quickly pull that up. Yeah. So like 29 million this past month.
And let's see something like Kraken.com. Let's just see that, what their traffic would be like. So 3.8 million, but that's not terrible. So if you compare that to if we go down the list here of exchanges, Kraken's probably it's not even a top.
You could control F it.
Control right there.
F. Yeah, there you go.
33 million in volume.
Yeah.
For a site
that's more real. Yeah.
That's getting 3.8 million in traffic. And then you've got this Mickey Mouse FAT BTC Chinese exchange that's bragging $500 million in volume with 70,000 in traffic. You're absolutely right. So that could be interesting, just to go through every single exchange, especially all these new obscure exchanges, put in their handles, see how much traffic they get, And, because with users come volume, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, what would be interesting is if we could see, obviously not Google, but if you could see search volume in China for how to buy Bitcoin. I don't know if there's any real transparent way to do that, but
let's see.
obviously, I mean, Google and everything is banned over there. So, I mean,
yeah.
I doubt do they have it? Oh, they have it listed on there.
It's dead.
Yeah.
No one's buying
Zero.
Bitcoin. And then one parabolic, oh, I want to buy some Bitcoin, and then dead.
Yeah. And if they do, then they have to use a VPN, but then it would not show China. So
past 9 days. Okay, let's just look at past 5 years.
yeah, Martin, good point. If you look at their order books, you can see they're super thin. Yeah, that's the most important thing actually for me is like I want to trade on an exchange where you can actually get good fills and you don't have to worry about crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, that's another thing. Exactly. You can look at their order book, and if they're like, we're pushing crazy volume and their order book's a liquid as shit, then it's fake. It's fake. Right.
Andy.
Let me pull up some new stuff. How about that?
DRJMB, it's called SimilarWeb. There's a website, but they have a plugin. There's also a few different ones. I think like SEM Rush. There's a few different SEO plugins where you can get stats, and it's just helpful for random stuff like that. Kyle brought this up in chat a little bit ago, talking about the Samsung S10.
Yeah.
So that's actually pretty huge. I wonder. I haven't read the article or looked into it yet, but I wonder if it is. I guess it's just like a native app.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, let's see. Like I think it's more than an app. I think they might have its own isolated hardware wallet chip. I don't know if we have all the details. That would be the way to do it in order to make it like truly secure.
Yeah.
They need to have backed by hardware, which houses your. Okay, so what it likely looks like on the back end, we don't have any phones to open up or look at, but once
Kyle says, I believe it's built directly into the operating system, but we don't know 100% if it has its own hardware, need more details. Yeah, that's the thing. If it's like a hybrid, like kind of sketch thing, I don't know. Maybe that's better than some of the apps on iPhone. I don't know.
Yeah, for this to be truly revolutionary, and this is an idea I'd actually thought about in 2015, they would need to not just have a software wallet on their operating system. They'd have to have a chip that's completely isolated from everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like having a Trezor chip built into the phone.
Now, that would be dope.
Yeah, so if they have that, then that would be huge. If they don't have that, and it's just like, oh, we've just added a hot wallet to our operating system. Well, that doesn't really excite me as much. But if they had an isolated chip, like a Trezor type chip, separate from everything else that was unhackable and cold storage, that would be huge. It does says that it's backed by secure storage, backed by hardware, but we don't have any details on that necessarily. Here's the press release. Go straight to the source, I guess.
Yeah.
Line engineering, smartphone design, performance.
Yeah, Tom. I don't think anybody would carry all their crypto on their phone.
No, and then you
definitely want to diversify.
Yeah, and then if they do have the chip, then you just kind of have to trust the company unless you can.
Interesting. I'll spend some time today reading it and trying to figure out.
It'll be cool to pay attention to, because that could actually be an uptick. And another interesting thing too, this is where the stock world and the crypto world can kind of intersect, because if you have regular companies an equities market making plays in crypto and creating some affiliation with crypto, and their prices are low, there's a possibility they can have a boom alongside with crypto. And one classic example of this is NVIDIA or anything that manufactures, gaming graphics cards that are used for mining. Every time, like their charts go nuts every time there's a crypto boom because of that, right? Because of supply and demand. Everyone's like FOMOing. What's the ticker?
NVDA.
NVDA.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is if I want to get some cross correlation.
Yeah, we've been talking about this one with Travelot. Because they've got their hands in multiple arenas, and the crypto GPUs were definitely a big thing, but they're doing stuff in like AI and we've talked quite a bit about this one. But
wow, so they they dropped off a ton, so big sell off. I know that over the past year, in 2018, we've been seeing more and more mining companies go bust. I even personally know someone who started a mining company in 2017 that went bankrupt in 2018. So we've been seeing more and more of that, people shutting down their miners. That probably impacted their stock price. I'm sure that had a huge play on that. Maybe not a be all and end all, but I'm sure that contributed to it, because also the price of the graphics cards, like when you're in peak like crypto market euphoria, you're paying like double or triple for the bloody cards on a secondary market because they tend to be sold out.
Yeah,
like, you can go into stores to try to buy the top of the line cards and they're sold out. You can't find them anywhere. Gamers get pissed off at crypto heads because they end up buying out all the gaming cards. And then there's a big secondary market. People will like buy them up and wholesale, and then they'll resell them on eBay for like double the price or whatever. And so in my opinion, obviously, like if people want to get into the mining game, I think if one can bootstrap and get your GPU cards cheaper when it's harder to turn a profit mining, if you can bootstrap and survive mining with these lower prices and such, then your pay dirt will likely happen, just like accumulation when you get that uptick in the markets. And one interesting thing with mining that differs from just regular trading and investing, something that people might want to take into consideration, are possibly some of the tax advantages. Because like if you buy Bitcoin right now with your dollars, even if it's in a company, that's not a write-off, right? You don't offset that as an expense. Mm-hmm. If you take your dollars and you buy mining equipment and you start mining with it, that's a cost. That's an operational cost to your business.
Yeah. Right? You could set up just as a separate entity, and say you take losses for a year and then they pay off 2 or 3 years down the road. Yeah, that you could offset those losses against some gains.
Exactly. And depending on, I think there's a gray zone with the accounting, but you might be able to, I don't know how they handle Bitcoin mining, but you might be able to not claim it unless you sell and realize the profit. One similar example to this would be like if you own, if you work for a company, or let's say you don't work for a company, but someone pays you in shares, but you haven't sold or realized that payment, then the taxable event gets deferred until those shares are sold, even though it was a barter exchange or whatnot. So there might be something similar that one can do in crypto. I think for the most part in crypto, there's some guidelines around the taxes, but there's also a lot of room for interpretation. And as long as you can back your claim and support it, chances are you might be able to do stuff like that. So if I look at a chart like this, though, kind of, this is where I get sticky with charts, though, is because like the fundamentals will say one thing, but then the maybe because I'm just so used to trading like vaporware shit coins that are just technical based.
Yeah.
Now, like I look at this and I'm like, oh, that looks like it could be a bear flag or a bear pennant that's gonna just retracement that's gonna break down further and do a full like here. Like this.
NVIDIA is kind of complex because as Trav typed in chat, he said they're in crypto, gaming, machine learning, cloud computing, autonomous driving, definitely in some hot markets, but a lot of those markets have pulled back. So then it comes down to the fundamentals, and you got to make bets based on where you think those things are going to be in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Rock, why don't we do this? We've been going for an hour and a half or more than that.
All right.
Why don't we run through the rest of the news, and then we'll do some Q&A. And
all right, sounds good. So other news, Elon Musk is talking about
Bitcoin. Elon's gonna pump our bags.
Yeah, apparently he owns a whole whopping quarter of a Bitcoin, but he's a big believer in the technology. So he has not accumulated yet, so he's going to buy all our bags, and we're all going to moon rocket.
He said he's going to text me when he does. He's going to sell SpaceX and go all in on Bitcoin Cash.
It's like all your Bitcoin belong to me now. But what I like about that, though, the fact that he's talking about that, or anyone who's an innovator who's also influential talking about crypto or Bitcoin, is, obviously he's got fans. That puts Bitcoin on more people's radars. And you never know. Maybe one day he's going to create micropayments for his cars so that you go to a gas station and it could just send a Bitcoin payment and it doesn't have gas. Electric station. I caught myself there. An electric station, it does a little micropayment for the electricity and then fills up. Or, a toll. You're driving on a private highway that requires a toll booth. What if it sends a micropayment and incorporates crypto? They talk about how Bitcoin could be used for machine payments and stuff like that. So you never know. He's an innovator. If he's interested in crypto, he might just build something around it. And obviously that'll be a little boost. So things like that. It's superficial news, nothing deep, but it does show user interest, adoption. It's on, smart people's radars. Another one from some big news. Cyborg Zuckerberg wants to do blockchain login.
Yeah, this Facebook. To me is kind of weird.
I think it's just trying to jump on the blockchain hype myself.
Yeah, the whole idea of using your Facebook login for stuff, it freaks me out, and it's not smart.
No, and there's been a big exodus, people deleting their Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't trust him. I think he's a Borg alien from, it's just
definitely one day he's going to have a tentacle that just shoots out of one of his ears, and everybody's going to know.
You see the memes where he's pretending to smile and act human and stuff. Anyways, and what else? What was the other one? You said there was an ICO. CoinList is getting ready to list another STO. I have not invested in anything through CoinList yet. Just kind of been watching, and I don't know much about Origin, but I'll do some due diligence on this one, and I don't know. I'll let you guys know. Let me see if my T0 got filled. Oh yeah, you want to talk a little bit about your T0? Yeah,
there's not a whole lot to say.
I'll share that link that you posted.
Yeah, I mean, you can pull up that image that I sent you.
Copy link. This is the platform right here, folks. That's
basically it. There's one green button off to the side that says trade, but that's it.
If you're not an accredited investor, it's time to get real envious of this, folks.
Yeah, Kyle, my funds cleared this morning, so I put in some limits. Doesn't look like they've been filled yet. I don't really know what to expect. I'm just doing like a small starter position to kind of flirt with the tokens and see how this platform works. And then, so I've got this. Let me see. I passed on the Harbor deal, at least their first offering, which was the student housing. Open Finance said they didn't want me because I'm American. Who else am I missing? I've got a lot of documentation that I've been creating and just documenting over the past like 90 days or so. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, David. I'm not exactly sure what protocols they have built into the tokens. If I can store them off exchange, I know, like in theory, a lot of these security tokens are going to have built-in protocols where it checks different things to make sure that it's a legal transaction. So they're trying to automate the regulatory side. Yeah, I have not heard much communication from Patrick Byrne other than his like media tour kind of pumping this stuff. But I think they're going to have, Kyle, you were telling me they were going to have this dyno was kind of the, I guess, the gap, the bridge between their real trading platform. I think you were saying that. Yeah, they're in games and exchange. So they're basically just working with this broker, and the tokens they're actually only open for trading during regular stock market hours right now. So that's kind of weird. Okay, yeah. So they're approved as an ATS, alternative trading system right now. They're going for full exchange. Kyle or anybody else, have you heard timelines or anything else? I've been perusing their Telegram, trying to sift through all the BS, but doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of really good information out there.
So I have a question as to if I look more into Holo in relation to Holoport. I don't really think there was any other update after the one on January 23rd where they talked about how the Holoport nodes were on track to still launch for Q1. I haven't heard anything beyond that, so I'm still kind of waiting to see. I might actually just buy one when it comes out to test it out, because it could be another way to make some money, proof of selling some bandwidth resources, so I can do that, and just to experiment. So could be a big thing. So no real updates in relation to that, but if I hear anything, then I'll definitely let folks know in relation to that.
Cool. Yeah, Kyle says he was thinking August for when they're going to launch the exchange, when non-accredited can get in on that. Also told Kyle that it'd be cool if he could interview him on his YouTube channel or get on my channel or whatever. Like that way we can hit him with some real questions, because most of the publicity that's been out there has just kind of been fluffy stuff.
So if we have a known date, so this is one little game that I like to play in crypto, since there's a lot of hype and hot air, or hot air based on hype, is if there are like known fundamental events and the price is in the gutter and much cheaper than the ICO or STO price, but there's a known hype event along the future that most people aren't really paying attention to or focusing on, like in August, then if I were to play something like this, I'd probably buy some T0 and then wait till August, and I bet you'll have like a big hype. Maybe there'll be more liquidity if they open it up to everyone. I'll probably get more PR, some press releases, some more media, more money that can come in. It might have a little pump or whatnot, and then probably sell into that. And that definitely works a lot better. That strategy works a lot better in bull markets. In bear markets, you could have like tech releases and developers doing backflips and juggling with one arm and whatever, and no one gives a crap, right?
Yeah, exactly. And kind of my thought process to that point is like, all right, I'm going to have a starter position here at $3 ish. I don't know if that's like, I don't really know how to value that, other than I know there's a lot of people that bought at 10. So it seems to found some kind of floor at 3. It's like really difficult because there's not even a chart or market depth or anything like that. So I'll buy a little bit here in the 3s. Let's say we get a second, like I'm trying to almost like envision what the chart looks like in my mind if there was a chart. So I'm like, all right, if we get a secondary dump, maybe we get into the 1 to 2 range, then I'd probably go twice as heavy on the volume there, which still wouldn't be even that big, but then I'd get my average below 2. And then to your point about August, like knowing that they would try to maybe get it back up to par by that time frame, that could be a 5X possibly, right? And then say there was a premium after launch on that. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of trading like with a blindfold on. That's why I'm like not going to really trade big volume on this. So
yeah, and it's all position sizing. You know, you take a, you know, if I was trading this and I took a punt at $3, I wouldn't go all in of what size I want to go in. If it went to like $2 and $1, I'd probably just buy more if I thought the project was going to do really well. So I would just kind of like position size, and if it dropped more, I'd average down, especially if I knew there's a big hype event coming. And yeah, I mean, I see this as like one of those like big risk rewards. You know, it's a big risk because it's like shit volume and no one cares about it right now.
Yep.
But you know, Bitcoin when it launched was shit volume and no one cares about it. Now I'm not comparing this to Bitcoin, but anything with massive potential reward value in future, when it's at the very early stages, if it survives and does well, it's like, you know, imagine investing in Coinbase in 2014 type of thing.
Exactly. That's my thought, is like, you know, if this were any other type of project, if this was just another protocol or, you know, God forbid, like a DApp or something crazy, like I really wouldn't be paying this much attention to it. It's the fact that it's or going to be an exchange, right? Like these things are just cash cows. So the thing that I don't like is that they raised a shit ton of money up front. I mean, they raised what, 130 something million, like that. And Patrick said in a presentation he was given a week or two ago that they've already spent 100 million on it.
How?
Great question.
How? Like, how do you burn through $100 million in a year on a new startup? I mean,
Kyle says lawyers. Trust.
Lawyers.
Lambos. Andy, you got it right. That Park City house that Byrne bought. Anyway, yeah. So it's, you know, guys, it's one of those things where it's super, super early. If I were going to compare it to something, I would say like, you know, Bitcoin 2011, right? Maybe like, not that, again, like Rock said, not that I expect it to explode like Bitcoin, but
Travis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Travis says the platform looks like it took 2 full-time devs to develop it, so maybe $500,000. Yeah. I don't know, maybe if he's just, you know.
Yeah, what you see here in this little picture, this image that Chris showed me, is all the features of the exchange.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally it. But you know what? To be fair, I guess they have been building the bigger picture since 2014. And the platform that, if you look on their YouTube channel, let me see if I can find it. If you look at the ATS that they had, that they were showing like 2 years ago, this is not it. Let me see. Channels. Oh, it's not even public. I have to find the link. I think it's unlisted, but I have it saved somewhere. Hang on. T0.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
DLR. Here we go. Their DLR software, digital locate receipt. So yeah, this is something a little bit different, but you know, they have other stuff. It's just they're not doing a good job of communicating this.
Yeah, for sure. So it's one of those things, you know, like in my opinion, some of the best startups are ones that don't raise insane amounts of cash and learn how to bootstrap on a tight budget, work long hours, make sacrifices, and then grow and build something. Because if they can bootstrap on a smaller budget, then it shows they know how to manage money. But sometimes it's like, you know, if someone just raises hundreds of millions of dollars right off the bat for their startup, then
Yeah.
suddenly it just, could feel like you have an infinite amount of money to burn. Let's get the big lavish office and this and the that and whatever, right?
It's
I
like,
don't know.
was it BitMEX that got the most expensive office in the world in Hong Kong in that building?
They did. But the interesting thing with BitMEX is that, when they started, they totally bootstrapped, right?
Yeah.
And so they grew from the ground up. Now they're actually like generating insane amounts of profit where they can afford to sit on the high towers now with all the banks and shit in Hong Kong and kind of stunt a little bit with those banks on those banks because they're making so much money and so, I mean, good on them for doing that. But if they were, let's say they didn't have any revenue and they just raised a few $100 million and then bought that office or whatever.
Yeah.
Then that would be like the main difference, right?
Yep.
That I would see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of ICOs looked at that and thought they were going to be that, right? They're like, all right, well, let's raise 20 and then get to a point where we're going to make $500 million in profits. But that's why I just like exchanges. Man, I wish I could go back to the seed round in Coinbase and be looking at an $8 billion valuation. God.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like we've been going on close to 2 hours now.
Cool.
Anything else? One last thing. I had a request to look at EOS, so just quickly look at this chart. I'll blast through this over the next couple of minutes and then we'll wrap it up. So one question, would you enter EOS on a retrace? If so, where? Right now, EOS, it looks like it's just at resistance, right? So I definitely wouldn't be buying right now. Let's see who has the most data on EOS.
Yeah, look at the Bitfinex USD chart. Yeah, that one.
So you can see here that it popped right. It did make, what's interesting with EOS is it did break out of this resistance point, but now it's up at another resistance point where you had prior support in through here. And so if it could break out of that, that'd be good. But the question is, if I were to buy